That's right. We get to work with Greg, Tom, and Keith. And then we'll have, we'll post the cast list at 2 o'clock tomorrow. We'll have a rehearsal, and we'll have a performance. And like I said, it's great fun, so I hope all of you who come to the seminar will audition for us. We have a little bit of time, so are there questions? Yeah.
You said you recently joined the Screen Actors Guild. Is it easier to get voice acting work if you're already a member of the organization, or does
Yes.
it? Okay.
Well, it's way easier to get union work.
Yeah.
Because it's almost impossible to get union work without being in SAG.
It is about, yeah, you have to.
The first time you can get what they call Taft-Hartley.
Yeah.
But after that, you need to be in the union, so yeah, I mean, it's definitely the goal is to get into SAG.
How would you suggest getting started?
I'll start with what I say every time. You got to move somewhere where they're doing work. So I don't know where you live. If you live in Los Angeles, great. If you live in New York, there's a little bit of work done in New York. There's actually a little bit of work being done in Texas, in anime. There's work being done in Vancouver. Yeah. There's a little bit of work being done in Toronto. But to benefit from that, you can't just be, hey, I live in Chicago, I think I'll move to Toronto. You actually have to be a Canadian citizen to benefit from the work being done in Canada. For all I know, half of you are Canadian. But that's got to be, step one. You got to be where the work is. It's not that you can't physically do it from somewhere else, but how are you going to get that first job? And the truth is, if you're not in town, it's an added expense. So if a series production is on a budget, and they all are, you have to be pretty damn special and have already proved that you're pretty damn special in order for them to want to do the extra expense of recording you somewhere other than Los Angeles or other than New York, wherever their base is. So you have to go to where the work is. That's got to be step one. After that, there are classes you can take, taught by actual voice directors who work in the industry. And I recommend taking those classes for two reasons. One, because people like Lee McSwain or Jane Thomason, Sue Blue teach these classes. You have stuff you can learn from them. But two, they get to hear you. And those classes also teach you to put together a demo reel of what you can do with your voice, which then gets sent. You can send to agents, try to get an agent, send to casting directors, voice directors. So, but still, it all comes down to where do you live. I mean, fundamentally, that's step one.
Hi, just has the animation business been affected at all by the writer's strike in Hollywood, or?
Very indirectly. The writer's strike is WGA, and animation writers are TAG, the Animation Guild. So, for example, Spider-Man, which was a show I was working on during production of, during the writer's strike, was completely unaffected in any direct sense by it. Now, on the other hand, there's a likelihood that SAG is about to strike, and we are a SAG show, so we had to make sure that we had all our voices recorded before the potential strike might happen. Now, we had a couple actors who were out of town. Alana Ubach, who plays Liz Allen, was in New York doing a show, and Miguel Ferrer, who's playing a guest character, Silvermane, was in Idaho. And normally we just wait for them to come back to town to pick them up, but because of the threat of the actors' strike, we felt we had to spend that little bit extra money to record Miguel in Idaho and record Alana in New York. Any questions? Yeah.
Well, this sort of bothered me, but is it sometimes hard to get stuff to replace an actor? I mean, like either if the actor or actress wants to leave the show, or if they die. You know.
You know, it's not great to have to replace someone. I mean, you know, every show's different, and sometimes if a performer dies, you make the choice to kill off the character or stop using that character. For example, when Phil Hartman died, The Simpsons just chose not to use Troy McClure or Lionel Hutz anymore, the two characters that he did on the show. They didn't explain it, you just never see those characters anymore. On the other hand, if for whatever reason you need to replace the character, we had Keith David performing the part of the big man in episode 1 of Spider-Man. And then Keith went to New York to play Oberon in A Midsummer Night's Dream, Shakespeare in the Park. For some reason he found that more important. We, you know, were a little caught off, we shouldn't have been, but we were a little caught off guard by that, and so we replaced him. We found a sound-alike, Kevin Michael Richardson, who does a terrific Keith David. You know, I've worked with Keith for years, and there are certainly moments when I know it's not him, but if you listen to it, there are objectively moments where if I didn't know it wasn't Keith, I would just think it was Keith. And Kevin is a great actor, a great performer, doesn't a funny guy, big black guy, I mean, huge, constantly making out with Jen. Plays Barney Rubble. Is now the regular voice of Barney Rubble, as well as the regular voice of the Joker, the Batman, and on our show he plays Tombstone, Big Man. The fantasy is that if Tom's in a role, he's playing that role, and he can do anything from evil to innocent, obviously. But his voice is distinctive enough, it's hard for him to play a second role in the same show. Whereas a guy like Jeff Bennett can do 12, 20, 62 completely distinct voices within
Jeff Bennett had the nerve to say to me once that he goes, "You're so lucky that you just have that voice that's so distinctive." And I went, "I'm so lucky. I'm working 5 jobs a day." And he was, "Oh." And he would try to do my voice. I came in one time from a bathroom break at Gargoyles. I'm like, "Oh, I'm not trying to replace me." Jeff was trying to do my
He actually really does Bill Fagerbakke.
Yeah, he does.
He nails Bill Fagerbakke.
When it comes to voice actors who, you know, you said like Tom, who only have like one like a distinct voice, and then people like Jeff who have like many voices, is there really which one is better than the other? Because I can kind of see benefits to both, really. If
there are definitely benefits to both, but really, you know, if you're doing a new show, you hold auditions for the lead characters, and you know, when we did, I mean, Gargoyles is a good example. We didn't exactly know what a gargoyle was supposed to sound like, and Tom was actually, without a doubt, the key to figuring this out. Tom and Bill Fagerbakke, because we didn't know. And Tom comes in with his, you know, gravelly but high, relatively high voice, and Bill Fagerbakke comes in with his gravelly, low voice, and suddenly we said that's got to be it. I mean, you know, there'd be some gravel in it, and so what we then said to Jeff is, find the middle, you know, for Brooklyn, because Jeff is such a technician. You know, listen to what Tom is doing for Lex, listen to what Bill's doing for Broadway, find the middle ground between there, and he did. And that helped us define, you know, both in terms of what we would do with Hudson and what we would do with Damona, what we would do with Goliath, and what we would do with every gargoyle from that point on, pretty much. I don't know that we were always that attentive to it, but we tried to be.
Yeah, so I think there's pros and cons to both.
Yeah.
And like Jeff wanted to read, or did, when I did Felix the Cat, and I finally got that, and they read us for 8 months, like 8 different auditions. I remember Jeff saying, oh, no, they won't read me for that or something. I was like, oh, and because they wanted somebody that's so distinctive. Not that Jeff can't do a distinctive voice, but I don't know. But I'd rather have his voices because he works a lot more.
What about dealing with voice actors who really aren't like one voice distinct, but they can also do with many voices, but you can always tell who it is. Like Jim Cummings, he does a huge range of voices, but you can always tell that it's Jim Cummings who's doing it.
Well, if it's very cartoony, Jim can give you pretty clear distinction. But yeah, it can be an issue for me as a producer with Jim. I have to be a little more careful. Jim does all these other voices, but there's a flavor of Jim in everything he does, whereas Jeff really gives you kind of complete separation. For all you know, it's an entirely different actor. So I have to be a little more careful with Jim than I would be with Jeff, and a little more careful with Tom than I would be with Jim. But what you want fundamentally for all your major roles or guest stars or whatever is one great